The story of JonBenet Ramsey has haunted America for almost 30 years. It's a story full of secrets, confusion, and questions that no one could fully answer. The case of a beautiful 6-year-old girl found dead in her own home just the day after Christmas shocked the entire nation. There was a long ransom note, a family that looked perfect on the outside, and a crime so strange that it left everyone speechless. Over the years, people argued, pointed fingers, and created wild theories, but the real truth stayed hidden, buried under police mistakes, media chaos, and unanswered questions. For decades, the name JonBenet Ramsey brought to mind mystery and sadness. But now, with the help of new technology and DNA tools that didn't exist back then, investigators believe they may finally be close to uncovering the truth. Could this be the ending everyone has waited for? Or will it reveal something even darker than anyone ever imagined? When JonBenet was killed in 1996, DNA testing was still in its early stages. Back then, investigators collected small bits of DNA from her clothes and fingernails, but the technology wasn't advanced enough to give them clear answers. They knew the DNA didn't belong to anyone in the family, but they couldn't find out who it came from. The evidence was too small, and the machines of that time couldn't read it properly. As the years went by, science evolved. Experts found ways to get detailed information from smaller samples. A new method called genetic genealogy changed everything. This technique used family trees and DNA samples that people sent to ancestry websites to learn about their heritage. Even if a criminal never sent their DNA, one of their relatives might have. From that, investigators could start connecting the dots, slowly building a family tree until they found a likely match. In 2024, nearly 3 decades after JonBenet's death, investigators decided to try this method. They worked with a specialized company called Parabon Nanolabs, known for solving cold cases using advanced DNA matching. Scientists created a brand new, high-quality DNA profile from the tiny evidence left behind on JonBenet's clothing and uploaded it into public databases. The results were surprising. They didn't find an exact match, but they did find distant relatives, people who could be cousins or family members several generations apart. That gave investigators a starting point. For months, they carefully studied old records, birth certificates, and family histories. They followed every lead until, finally, one man stood out. In 2024, he was 62 years old. Back in 1996, he was 34 and living just 2 miles from the Ramsey family home. He worked for a catering company that had handled events in the same neighborhood, including one only a few houses away from the Ramseys' home during Christmas week. This man had never been on the police radar. He wasn't known for violent crimes, only minor offenses like theft or fraud. No one had ever suspected him of harming a child. But after JonBenet's death, he suddenly moved from Colorado and began living in different states: Arizona, Nevada, Texas, and finally Washington. It looked like he was trying to disappear. Detectives secretly collected his DNA from discarded items, such as a coffee cup and a cigarette butt. When they tested it, the results stunned everyone. It was a perfect match to the DNA found on JonBenet's clothes. The odds that it belonged to anyone else were almost impossible. When police searched his home and storage unit, they found an old jacket from the 1990s with fibers matching those found on JonBenet's clothing. Even the mysterious ransom note was re-examined using new software that could analyze handwriting patterns in detail. The writing style matched samples from this man's old work documents. Though investigators don't yet know if he personally knew the Ramseys, it's believed he may have seen them at a neighborhood event and learned about their holiday travel plans. He might have thought he could sneak in, not expecting anyone to be home. While investigators continue to double-check every piece of evidence before an arrest, this breakthrough gives JonBenet's surviving family new hope after so many painful years. On the morning of December 26, 1996, Boulder police received a frantic call from Patsy Ramsey. She said her daughter was missing and that she'd found a ransom note. The letter was strange, unusually long, more than 2 pages, and very detailed. It demanded $118,000, the exact amount of John Ramsey's Christmas bonus that year. That detail immediately made investigators suspicious. Patsy was terrified and didn't know what to do. When officers arrived, they treated the case as a kidnapping instead of a possible murder. That mistake changed everything. They allowed friends and family to walk around the house, touching things and possibly destroying vital evidence. Hours later, it was John Ramsey who found his daughter's body in the basement. 6-year-old JonBenet had been brutally attacked. She had a head injury and marks on her neck from being strangled with a homemade garrote made from a paintbrush and a cord. It was a horrifying scene. The police quickly realized it wasn't a simple kidnapping. The note, the lack of forced entry, and the way JonBenet was found all pointed to something far more complicated. Yet, because the investigation had been handled so poorly, evidence was lost forever. John had moved the body, contaminating the crime scene. The ransom note had been written on paper from inside the Ramsey home, suggesting it could have been written by someone in the house. For years, suspicions fell on the family. Patsy was accused of accidentally hurting JonBenet during a fit of anger or while disciplining her. Others blamed Burke, JonBenet's older brother, suggesting it could have been a childish accident covered up by the parents. But there was no proof. When DNA testing advanced in 2003, results showed that the DNA on JonBenet's clothes did not belong to any family member. The Ramseys were finally cleared, but it came too late. The family's name had already been dragged through the mud by the press. Patsy Ramsey passed away in 2006 from cancer, still fighting to clear her name. Burke Ramsey stayed quiet for almost 30 years. As a child, he was protected from the spotlight, but rumors about him never stopped. Some people even believed he was the killer. When he finally spoke as an adult, he described the pain of losing his sister and growing up under constant suspicion. He described JonBenet as a bright, joyful girl who loved dressing up, performing in pageants, and singing around the house. She wasn't just a victim, she was a little girl full of life and dreams. Burke said his parents were devastated, not only by their daughter's death but also by being accused of causing it. He admitted he still doesn't understand the ransom note and hopes modern DNA testing will finally solve the mystery. He wants justice, not only for JonBenet but also for his parents, who lived with unbearable guilt and judgment for decades. Despite the pain, the Ramseys never stopped fighting to prove their innocence. The case became one of the most famous unsolved crimes in American history, inspiring documentaries, books, and endless debates. Over time, investigators uncovered more puzzling clues. There was a broken window in the basement with a suitcase under it, something John Ramsey said was unusual. 2 sets of unidentified footprints were found near the scene. A rope that didn't belong to the family was also found, but it was never tested for DNA. Outside, snow covered the ground, yet there were no footprints leading to or from the house. That detail confused everyone. How could someone get in or out without leaving a trace? Even the ransom note contained bizarre details. It seemed to have been practiced before being written in final form. It was signed SBTC, a set of letters no one has ever decoded. Over the years, investigators chased dozens of suspects. One of them, Bill McReynolds, dressed as Santa Claus at local events and had visited JonBenet days before her death. He said he felt a special bond with her and even kept glitter she gave him, asking for it to be mixed with his ashes when he died. Many found that strange, but there was no real evidence against him. Another suspect, Gary Oliva, lived near the Ramsey home and was later convicted of child pornography crimes. He once called a friend after JonBenet's death and said he had hurt a little girl, but again, his DNA didn't match. Years later, a man named John Mark Carr confessed to killing JonBenet, saying he had struck her with a flashlight. But he was in another state at the time. His confession turned out to be false. Experts later pointed out that the unknown DNA found on JonBenet's clothing could have been contamination from the factory where her clothes were made. That revelation added even more confusion to an already tangled mystery. For a time, it seemed the case would never be solved. Then, about 9 months after JonBenet's death, something chilling happened in the same area. Another young girl, who knew JonBenet from dance class, was attacked in her own bed at home. Her mother woke up and saw the intruder, who jumped off a balcony and escaped. Shockingly, the police never connected the two cases. They even threw away key evidence, including the girl's bedsheets, which could have held DNA. It was another lost opportunity that could have solved both crimes. In 2008, the Ramsey family was finally cleared by the Boulder District Attorney's Office. But by then, Patsy was gone, and John was left to live with the grief and public judgment. Even though the evidence said they were innocent, the shadow of suspicion lingered for years. Now, with new investigators and advanced technology, there's a renewed hope that justice will finally come. JonBenet's father and her half-brother, John Andrew, believe that the truth is closer than ever. They support the use of modern DNA genealogy to track down the person responsible, believing the killer may still be alive. Behind all the theories and clues was a family that, for all its wealth and appearance, was broken by tragedy. John Ramsey was a successful businessman who built a $1 million company called Access Graphics. Their home was big and beautiful, decorated for Christmas when the tragedy struck. But despite the luxury, they were an ordinary family with love, laughter, and their share of problems. Neighbors remembered hearing a loud scream that night. One woman said it was the most chilling sound she had ever heard. Another noticed strange lights moving inside the Ramsey house late at night. These details became part of the many theories that filled newspapers and documentaries for years. There was also the mystery of the pineapple. During the autopsy, undigested pineapple was found in JonBenet's stomach. A bowl of pineapple with a spoon was sitting on the kitchen table that morning. Patsy's fingerprints were found on the bowl, yet both parents said they didn't remember preparing it. Some theorists claimed Burke might have been eating it, and JonBenet took a piece, leading to an argument. But again, no evidence ever proved that. The investigation itself was full of problems. Police and prosecutors argued about what to do. Evidence was mishandled, leads were ignored, and personal conflicts between departments slowed everything down. At one point, there were 6 different unidentified DNA samples found on various objects, none matching anyone in the Ramsey family. Former FBI profiler Candace DeLong later said that finding the same male DNA in multiple spots made it almost certain it came from the killer. As the years went on, the case became a cautionary tale about how poor police work and quick assumptions can ruin an investigation. The Ramseys' wealth and fame made them easy targets for suspicion, but it also shielded them from some consequences. Some people still believe they were treated unfairly, while others think their money protected them. Even now, decades later, people continue to talk about JonBenet Ramsey, not just because of the horror of her death, but because of the mystery that still surrounds it. She was a bright, talented little girl who loved to sing, dance, and smile for the camera. Her story became a symbol of lost innocence and a reminder of how justice can sometimes take far too long. For her family, the hope has never died. They still believe that the truth will come out, that one day they'll finally know who was responsible for the tragedy that changed their lives forever. And now, with the discovery of new DNA matches, that day might finally be near.